or the Devil Will Get You by Elena Davis. Chapter 1. Nighttime hung over the house like a gloomy dark cloth, the shrieks and bangs practically shaking the walls as they floated up into the air. Charlotte Austins, a fresh-faced housewife, sat on the living room couch, knitting a blanket for the church auction as her only daughter, Helena, raised hell upstairs. Every scream scraped against her nerves and sharpened her anxiety until it was like needles poking through her skin. 3 days straight, she'd been screaming and beating on the walls of her room. No silence, no sleep. Her husband Darren spent the days on his knees bent by their bed, praying for deliverance. He hadn't eaten in all that time, no matter how much she tried to get him to. She was the only sane one in this house. She was sure of it. A short, loud rap on the door, different from the constant noise upstairs, made her jump and drop her knitting needles with a small squeal. She placed a hand over her heart and sighed deeply. Lord Jesus. In that moment, the unbearable noise and clamor from upstairs stopped. She looked up at the ceiling, waiting in suspense for it to start again. It never does. Mr. Austins emerged from their bedroom, dark blue bags beneath his weary eyes, though he seemed to be perfectly alert, eyes focused on the door. On the other side of it, he believes, is their last hope. I've got it, he mutters, walking to the front door. A man in a crisp navy suit and a white broad-brimmed hat stood in the doorway, illuminated only by the dim porch light, casting a shadow over his face. Evening, Mr. Austins, he said in a heady southern accent. Hello, Pastor, he replies. Please, come in. The younger man entered the home with the tip of his hat towards Charlotte. Evening, Mrs. Austins. She smoothed out her skirt with pursed lips, rising to face him. Pastor, welcome to our home. I apologize for making you come on such short notice. Darren closed the door and went to stand by his wife. She turned her face away from him. It's no trouble for the shepherd to tend to his flock. The noise began again, loud thumping as if she were beating the ground with her fists, screaming with full force before it slowly stopped, as if she had finally exhausted herself. A grim silence followed, broken only by Darren. Helena is in her room. Helena is the one afflicted with the demon, the pastor stated. Yes. Charlotte piped up. We don't know it's that. Darren gives her a harsh look. You explain it then, Charlotte. The pastor held up his hand. My apologies. It's not right of me to make a judgment before I've even seen her. Darren shook his head, frowning deeply. That ain't her up there, Pastor. I wish you wouldn't talk that way about her, she snapped. That's not our daughter. Now, the pastor interrupted. You said you've had a doctor see her? Charlotte turned her attention back to him, her eyes full of worry. Several. But everyone says they can't find anything wrong with her. Because it's not in the body, it's in the soul, her husband grunted. She chose not to respond, keeping her focus on the pastor. Before all of this, Darren continued, you would have never met a gentler, more sweet child than my dear Helena. Now she runs around the house screaming, throwing things, saying the foulest language I've ever heard. It's that school she went off to, I'm certain of it. They fill their heads with all kinds of false teachings. Again, Charlotte stayed silent. Have you taken her to a psychiatrist? Our daughter is not crazy, she blurted. That wasn't what I meant, ma'am. It's just a lot of times these things can be explained by mental or personality disorders. Darren sighed. We tried having one over to the house, but... A moment passed. He didn't finish the sentence. Did something happen? He rubbed his chin, thinking for a moment. Well, we don't really know what happened. All we know is that we heard him screaming from her bedroom, and by the time we ran upstairs to see what was going on, he fell out of her window and onto the fence. Charlotte finished for him, naked and bleeding. Darren cocked an eyebrow, or was pushed. It was an accident, she insisted. He had scratch marks up and down his arms and face. Once again, becoming the mediator to keep things on track, the pastor says, I see. Do you think Helena did that to him? Of course not. Her eyes became angry, defensive. What else could it be, Charlotte? Anything else. All right, the pastor says calmly. Let's start from the beginning. Was there some kind of event that might explain her sudden change in behavior? She shook her head, turning away from her husband. No, she was as happy and joyful as anyone could be. Until she wasn't. Darren leaned in close to him. To tell you the truth, Pastor, I don't know what on earth could have brought a demon into this house. Charlotte could no longer stand it. She turned, stomped her foot, and said, There is no demon in this house, for God's sake. Another long silence. The pastor said, Has she shown any other signs? Impossible things. Maybe having knowledge that she couldn't possibly have on her own? Speaking languages she doesn't know? No, Darren says, ignoring his wife. None of that. She mostly just talks. When she's not running amok, she'll start talking. What kind of things does she say? Nonsense, gibberish, just saying the same thing over and over again, which is, I see you, he says with trepidation. Just that, again and again. I see you. I see you. Any idea as to what it could mean? No. We're at a loss, Pastor. We have tried everything. And despite how you may protest, Charlotte, I know that is not our baby girl up in that room. We need your help, Pastor John. This is not a fight against flesh and blood. The pastor tipped his hat again. I swear to you, Mr. Austins, I will do everything I can with the Lord's help to see your daughter's well-being. Charlotte turned back and faced John. And exactly how do you plan on doing that? I've heard too many horror stories of people being tied down and beat with Bibles. He looked at her eyes, almost trying to send a message without saying a word. A reassuring message until he says, I can promise you I won't be doing any of that, ma'am. At least, not yet. Not yet? This is just an interview. A chance to meet Helena and get a sense of the problem. Her eyes were wet with tears. Oh, and once you've got your evidence that she's got a demon inside her, you plan on tying her down like a wild animal? Charlotte, Darren scolded, reaching out to grasp her shoulders. She flinched away from him. John holds his hands out to her to comfort her. She didn't flinch away this time. I didn't mean to upset you, ma'am. No one is being tied down. This is just the first meeting. Think of it as any other meeting with a doctor or a psychiatrist. A moment passed, and they looked into each other's eyes, something secret passing between them. Darren cleared his throat. I'll show you to her room. John nods and follows Darren up the stairs, leaving Charlotte to sit back down and continue knitting, more worried than ever. I just want to know if there's any precautions I need to take before speaking to your daughter, he says quietly. A strained pause, and then a mumbled, Try not to listen to her.